So, good morning, everyone. For the last few classes, we have been discussing about the strain gauge based force transducers or load transducers. In last class, we discussed cantilever beam type strain gauge load transducer and cylindrical specimen type load transducers. We saw different bridge configurations also. If we use four strain gauges, four active strain gauges, we have four-arm bridge configuration that is working for us. Now today we are going to see some more aspects of this Wheatstone bridge circuitry. If you just remember the expression R resistance of any conducting wire is equal to resistivity rho into length of the wire divided by cross-sectional area of the wire. Now, up till now, whatever strain gauge circuitry we have seen, we have assumed one major thing. What is that same thing that we have assumed? Resistance of the conducting wire changes only because of length changes, isn't it? But as I said, R is equal to rho into L by A. Length and cross-sectional area, these are the geometric parameters. The geometric parameters, uh, those are changing and the resistance is changing. But if the rho resistivity of the material changes, then also the resistance of the conducting wire changes. Now, keeping this fact in mind, let us say I'm going to use my load or force transducer to measure, let us say, the force measurement in some hostile environment, like where there is some engine around, there are some heat generating equipments around, and I have mounted my strain gauges to measure the force or the load. So in such hot environment, what will happen is, as the strain gauges are mounted on the specimen, and the specimen is subjected not only to length changes, it is also subjected to temperature changes also because of the environmental parameters or the surroundings. Now what happens, let us go back to the last lecture wherein we mounted the strain gauges, we connected the strain gauges to the Wheatstone bridge, and we applied some input voltage and we obtained some output voltage. And that output voltage we thought up till now was dependent on the resistance changes those are happening in the strain gauges. But if the resistance of that strain gauge wire is changing because of temperature effects also, we cannot find out whether it is because of temperature alone, it is because of strain alone, or it is because of the combination of temperature and strain. So, keeping that in mind, the researchers worked on this problem and they identified the techniques to separate out uh, the resistance changes due to temperature effects. Uh, Now, first of all, they found out what is the resistance change only because of length changes, and they also found out the resistance changes because of the combination of strain changes and temperature changes, and they built some compensating circuitry wherein they could separate out the resistance change because of temperature changes. But here we are going to see some compensating circuitries, some simple constructions or simple arrangements wherein we can isolate the effect of temperature within the circuit itself. Now, how that is done within the circuit itself? What they do is they make use of one dummy gauge. Now, what is this dummy gauge? Dummy gauge is same as the strain gauge, which we are using for measurement of force. It's the same, the strain gauge with the same configuration. But only thing is that instead of mounting it on the loaded specimen, it is mounted on one surface which is made up of similar material. Let us say the specimen on which my strain gauge is mounted is C40 steel. What I do is I take a piece of C40 steel plate, and on that plate I mount one more strain gauge which is of similar configuration. Similar configurations means what? It is made up of the same cupro-nickel alloy. Length, width are same. The gauge factor is same. So similar strain gauge is mounted on that piece of similar material. So what is the difference between the specimen strain gauge and this plate strain gauge? The specimen strain gauge is subjected to loading, whereas this plate strain gauge is not subjected to loading. So what do you mean by that? This plate strain gauge is subjected to environmental effects alone, and the specimen strain gauge is subjected to strain effects or length change effects and also the environmental effects. So the delta R that I have on the specimen strain gauge, the delta R will be equal to delta R because of epsilon, that is length change, plus delta R because of temperature change. So this total delta R after loading will be equal to delta R epsilon, that is resistance change due to strain change, plus delta R of T. So that is resistance change because of temperature effects. So this delta R, which is the summation of delta R epsilon and delta RT. This is total resistance change is measured by my Wheatstone bridge, and my output will be corresponding to that total resistance change if I don't use any additional gauge. Now, if I use this additional gauge, which is not subjected to loading, but it is subjected only to environmental effect, only to temperature effects. Now that gauge is called as a dummy gauge. Why dummy? It is same as the original strain gauge. It is mounted on the similar material that of the specimen, but only difference is that it is not subjected to loading. So that dummy gauge is also connected to my strain gauge circuitry. Now how it is connected? If I am using a single arm bridge, R1, R2, R3, R4. Now what I do is dummy gauge, I connect to the adjacent arms, either to R2 or R4. If you remember the bridge circuitry, R1, R2, R3, R4. I don't connect the dummy gauge in the opposite arm. I connect this dummy gauge in the adjacent arms. So R1 is AG, that is active gauge, and R2 is my DG, that is dummy gauge, right? So R1 is subjected to delta R, which is equal to delta R epsilon plus delta RT, whereas R2, delta R2 will be equal to delta RT alone. It is not subjected to loading. It is not subjected to any strain. It is subjected only to temperature change. So whatever resistance the change that is happening in the dummy gauge is only because of temperature change. Now, if you remember, my initial balancing equation, R1 upon R2 is equal to R3 upon R4. So R1, as we said, as we have seen in the last lecture, all the resistances are of the same value. So R1 is equal to R2 is equal to R3 is equal to R4 for initial balancing. R1 is equal to R2 is equal to R3 is equal to R4 is equal to R originally. Whatever is the ohmic value, maybe 300 ohms or 120 ohm, whatever it is, they are of the same value. Now after loading, what will happen? Originally all these are R, and R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4, it will become a balanced bridge. There will not be any output V0 across the terminals of the Wheatstone bridge initially before loading. Once I load, let us say that specimen is subjected to tensile strain. So what will happen? It will be subjected to plus epsilon. So what will happen? It will be subjected to plus delta R epsilon. So R1, in place of R1, what will have? R plus dr or delta R. Now this delta R for R1, as I said, please be attentive, as delta R of this resistance R1. Try to bring our Wheatstone bridge in front of your eyes. R1, instead of R1, when it is the strain gauge is loaded, this R1 will be replaced by R plus delta R, isn't it? And R2, even after loading, because it is subjected to temperature effect, R2 will also have a delta R, but that delta R will be equal to delta R of T. So that is delta RT. So RT has got R plus delta RT, whereas R1 hello. Hello, please mute yourself, please. Somebody who is talking, please mute your mic. We're getting disturbed. So coming back to this bridge balance equation, R1 upon R2 is equal to R3 by R4. Okay, there was some disturbance. Hope now the voice is clear. So come back. R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. R1 is the active strain gauge, which is subjected to R plus delta R epsilon plus delta R T, isn't it? R plus epsilon upon and R plus delta R because of epsilon plus delta R because of T. And denominator R2 is delta RT. As these are in divisive mode, R1 by R2 is in divisive mode. So delta R epsilon plus delta RT divided by delta RT. These are in divisive mode. This is also called as, these are in subtractive mode. So delta RT automatically gets eliminated because it is in the divisive mode, and that's why this dummy gauge is placed in the adjacent arms. So by using one dummy gauge, I can eliminate the effect of temperature. Now because of this, whatever readings after this technique is called as the compensation technique. So after temperature compensation, after using dummy gauge, the temperature effect is nullified, and whatever output voltage that I get, it will be because of the delta R. That delta R is only because of epsilon, only because of strain gauge. Now this is one technique. There is one more technique. There are a number of techniques of temperature compensation. One more technique quickly we'll review. Probably I have a slide for that. Probably I have. Yeah. First, let us finish this slide. We would like the resistance of the strain gauge to change only in response to applied strain. However, strain gauge material as well as specimen material to which the gauge is applied will also respond to changes in temperature. Strain gauge manufacturers attempt to minimize sensitivity to temperature by processing the gauge material to compensate for the thermal expansion of the specimen material. Compensated gauges reduce the thermal sensitivity, and they do not totally remove it, but they reduce the effect. So that another method that I was talking, this is the dummy gauge, right? This is mounted laterally along with my active gauge. This is mounted laterally. Now, normally, if I got uniaxial strain system, there will not be any lateral strain, and there will be minimum lateral strain. So this dummy strain gauge, this active strain gauge will be subjected to elongation, whereas this dummy strain gauge, as there is no lateral strain, it will not be subjected to any strain, but it will be subjected to the same environmental effect that as that of the active gauge. Active gauge is subjected to both strain effects and temperature effects, whereas the dummy gauge is subjected only to temperature effects. Now, these active and strain gauges are once again mounted in the adjacent arms, and the temperature effects from both the gauges are nullified. And what we ultimately get is the output voltage corresponding only to strain, or only because of length change. So by using two gauges, one gauge is active and the second gauge is dummy, is placed transverse to the applied strain. The strain has little effect on the second gauge called the dummy gauge. So there is not much of strain on the dummy gauge. Because the temperature changes are identical in both the changes, the ratio of the resistances does not change. The voltage does not change, and the effects of temperature change are minimized. So this is what is called as temperature compensation of strain gauge circuitry. Actually, though we are in the first unit wherein we are supposed to study only characteristics of sensors and transducers, this additional part, which is the part of the second unit, that is signal conditioning methods, because we are conditioning, we are using a balancing circuit and we are conditioning this strain gauge signal. This part, partially we have completed that along with our transducer part. So let us move further. Let us move further and go to the next variety of sensors and transducers. We'll see the temperature measuring transducers. Broadly, there are a number of varieties. We'll be studying only two major varieties. That is, one set of transducers which is EMF based, electromotive force based, and the second one is resistance based. So, what does that mean? Because of the temperature changes, the EMF generated by the transducer changes, that is EMF based. One variety is thermocouple, and resistance based means these are not generated. Resistance based are not generating any EMF of their own. So these are also called as passive transducers, whereas thermocouple are active transducers, because as they are subjected to temperature change, there is some electromotive force or voltage that is developed. So self-generating type or active transducer, whereas resistance-based temperature measuring device, these are the passive transducers. We require external power supply, but principally because of the temperature changes, the resistance of the conducting wire changes, and that property is utilized in resistance-based temperature transducers. There are two types that those will be studying based on resistance-based, that is resistance temperature detectors, we call them as RTDs. And the other one, that is thermistor. There are a number of other varieties as well. Thermopiles are there. Those we are not going to study now as per the syllabus, but we'll be studying these two basic types: EMF-based thermocouple and resistance-based RTD and thermistors. First, EMF-based, that is thermocouple. This we have been studying right from our school days. Seebeck effect we know. If two different metals or dissimilar metals, A and B, are connected with a junction and a voltmeter, and if the junction is heated, the meter should show a voltage. This is known as the Seebeck effect. So this dissimilar metal, the dissimilar metal pair, one subjected to hot source and the other is at some reference temperature. So these are the two junctions, hot junction, and we call this as a cold junction or a reference junction, cold junction or reference junction. So what happens when there is a temperature gradient, temperature difference that is generated by us? The current will start flowing in the external circuit. Now this, in the external circuit, there will be current flow, and this current flow will give me some potential difference. Okay, or maybe because of the potential difference, the current will flow. So ultimately, what happens is when I have some delta T between the hot junction and the reference junction and cold junction, what I get? I get proportionate voltage, that is delta V between A and B, voltage across A and B. So that is delta VB, which is equal to alpha into this delta T. Alpha is the Seebeck constant, okay, which is the decibel metal constant or temperature coefficient, we can say. So delta T is the temperature difference between the hot junction and the cold junction or the reference junction. So this is what is the principle of thermocouple. Okay, forget about this balancing circuitry. We'll be studying this in details in the second part. We are interested in the transducer part, how the heat is converted into temperature difference and how the temperature difference is converted into voltage difference. And that voltage difference I measure and I use some compensating circuitry so that I get the digital display of this temperature difference. Otherwise, these thermocouples will give me some analog voltage output to the tune of some microvolt, depending upon the delta T value. So that continuous signal or analog signal can be digitized by using A to D converter, and I get a digital display of temperature. So this thermocouple is based on Seebeck effect. A few construction details we'll see. At the tip of a grounded junction probe, the three types we have identified: grounded junction, exposed junction, and ungrounded junction. Now, junction, what do you mean by junction? This is the junction which is exposed to external temperature. Now this junction, ungrounded means, well, this is the grid and this is my ground. Now this grid, that junction is not touching this earthing, so that is ungrounded. And the second one is exposed directly to the temperature source. This junction is exposed directly to temperature source. And the third one is grounded. That means this junction is touching this ground terminal. Right? All the three varieties have different advantages and different limitations. So let us see grounded junction. This is grounded junction. At the tip of the grounded junction probe, the thermocouple wires are physically attached to the inside of the probe. This results in good heat transfer from outside to the probe wall to the temperature to the thermocouple junction. So the heat transfer is better. That's what he says in the grounded junction type thermocouple. In an ungrounded probe, I don't have grounding. It is this junction is exposed to the temperature effect. In an ungrounded probe, the thermocouple junction is detached from the probe wall. Response time is slower because the heat transfer is lower in the grounded style, but the ungrounded offers electrical isolation. So ungrounded junction offers me electrical isolation. So this is the benefit of ungrounded probe, but the response time is slower, or the response time is high. It will take much more time to respond. The third type is the thermocouple junction, thermocouple in the exposed junction, or the thermocouple in the exposed junction. And what I ungrounded type, I talked about this, sorry. Ungrounded probe is the one which is not connected to my grounded or the ground or the earthing, so to say. It is not connected. This is ungrounded. This is the ungrounded type. This is the grounded type. The third one is the exposed. The thermocouple in the exposed junction style protrudes out of the tip of the sheath. This is the sheath, protrudes out of the tip of the sheath and is exposed to the surrounding environment. This type offers me the best response time. So there is no thermal inertia delay. The junction is directly exposed to the temperature source or the heat source. But it is limited in use to dry, non-corrosive and non-pressurized applications, because as it is exposed to the environmental conditions, it might have this humidity effect, corrosive effects, pressure effects also. But the response time is better. So these are the three types of thermocouples which are used in industrial applications. Let us see a few more details of the types of the thermocouples. The materials used type. This we need to remember because in MCQs they might ask what are the types of thermocouples. We have J, K, T, E type, S type, R type, B type, and W type. So we need to remember these. T type is the copper constantan alloy. These are the dissimilar metal combinations they use. The sensitivity, as you remember, the static performance characteristics we studied earlier. Sensitivity is per unit change in temperature, how much is the output voltage that is given by the transducer, by this thermocouple. So per unit change in temperature, the per unit degree Celsius change in temperature, this copper constantan or T type thermocouple gives me between 20 to 60 microvolt. So based on my requirement, how sensitive or how much is the range of my measurement? If I'm interested in low temperature measurements to the smaller range, I prefer the thermocouple with higher sensitivity. But if I'm using on a larger temperature range and my temperature differences are also not small, those are big. Maybe in the case of furnaces, in case of cupolas, let us say, where the metal is being melted, or heat treatment furnaces, where I'm reaching temperature of 1000, 1200, 1500 degrees Celsius. There, the range is broad and the small temperature changes, I'm not interested. There, I select the thermocouple which has got lesser sensitivity. So we have already studied what is meant by sensitivity. Now this T-type junction is used, which has got sensitivity of 20 to 60 microvolt per degree Celsius change. And the range of temperature is minus 80 degree to plus 400 degrees Celsius. So for each of the commercial thermocouple, we get the specification sheet. And based on my requirement, while I'm designing a mechatronic system, based on my requirement, based on my static and dynamic performance characteristic requirement, I select appropriate transducer. In case of temperature also, I select the thermocouple based on my requirement. What is the fluid of which temperature is to be measured? All these factors are, whether it is a corrosive fluid, non-corrosive fluid. So what is the temperature range, right? And if it is to be used in a chemical industry, pharmaceutical industry, how critical is the small temperature change measurement, or how much is the permissible error? What is the permissible accuracy? What is the permissible precision? So all these factors decide the selection or influence the selection of thermocouple for particular application. And J type, it is the range is given. K type, chromal alumel type. E type, S type, R type, B type, and W type. Tungsten, rhenium, 5%, tungsten, and 20%. Sensitivity is lower, but the range is very broad, 0 to 3000 plus 3000 degrees Celsius. Okay. So constant is copper nickel, chromal is nickel chromium, alumel is nickel aluminum. So this is, so the selection, quickly we'll go through the selection criteria. Okay. What is the temperature range that I'm interested in? What is the corrosion resistance or temperature chemical resistance of the thermocouple or the sheath material, enclosing material, abrasion, wear, झीज किती होऊ शकेल त्याची कुठं मी वापरणार आहे, and vibration resistance. Installation requirements may need to be compatible with existing equipment. Existing holes may determine probe diameters. म्हणजे त्यासाठी we need not have separate drilling of the hole. Whatever cooling jacket I have on the IC engine, that I can pick up. So the mounting availabilities also decide the selection of the mounting material, selection of the thermocouples. So all these factors help us in selecting the thermocouple for my particular application. I think we'll stop for today. We have done quickly reviewing. We have done the temperature compensation of strain gauge part in today's lecture, and we have just started off with temperature transducers. We categorize temperature transducers in two varieties. That is, one is EMF based, that is thermocouple. The second is resistance based. We'll be studying resistance temperature detector, RTD, and we'll be studying thermistors as well. So today we shall stop. If you have any difficulties, just use my WhatsApp number and put in your queries. We shall see those later on. We have the experimental setup for this temperature transducers as well. When we open up colleges, we can conduct the experiments. The important thing from mechatronic system design point of view, we'll be needing these temperature transducers at many applications. We need to learn the specifications of the temperature transducers and the selection criteria for the specific temperature transducers. So have a nice day. We should stop for today. Thank you.